I never know when I'm actually live on here. It says you're live, and then you're not live. How are you? Just checking all my settings here so that I can kind of somewhat see your chat and answer your questions. As many of you know, but many of you also don't know, I'm having a very powerful one-of-a-kind channeling class on September the 12th with my friend, colleague, and channeling master, Jen Ward. So you can find her at genuinehealing.com. She's going to be working with everyone in attendance on unblocking, doing a particular process which she founded called the Spiritual Freedom Technique to unblock your abilities that you can't access in order to channel and to be talking to you about those blocks. I'm going to be the person that's responsible for teaching you techniques and sharing what works and what doesn't. So this is kind of the real behind the scenes authentic channelers class when you just really want all the secrets to be able to channel, and also to just kind of get through some issues that you're having. You know, if you have fears about channeling, if you've had a bad experience with channeling, if you don't even know what it is, whether you are a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced channel, if you've never done it before in your life, it's still the class for you. We might be doing a series of things like this if it goes well. So we'll just see, if you guys enjoy the class, but you've enjoyed watching me work with her so far. And I can't wait to work with you guys. So you can sign up for that on PamelaAaralyn.com. September the 12th is when that is. And if you, for some reason, just can't make it live, keep in mind that with 99.9% of my classes, when you can't make it live, as long as you register before the cutoff date, you will receive a recording, your recording with your own password, that you can watch it when you want. Okay. So then it becomes a replay if you can't make it. All right. Well, that's an interesting question from Jay Lee. And she asked, have you ever done a 2-part payment plan for your services? I don't do payment plans for classes because they're already so affordable. When it comes to mentorships, and readings and things like that, I have been known to do payment plans. But what happens is you pay for one session and then you get one session. And then you pay for your next mentorship session and then schedule it. And that's how that goes. It's not really a payment plan. It's just more of a pay as you go, as opposed to having to pay for a full package. So yeah, do that. When people ask, you won't find it on my website, but when you ask, if you're committed to doing it, then sure, I don't have a problem with it. All right. So today we're going to be answering your questions about what blocks you have personally in your channeling abilities. And channeling is everything. It's healing. It's talking to the higher self, talking to spirit guides, talking to the ascended masters, talking to the angelics. It's everything. Okay. It's not just one thing. Everything that you do is channeling. It's just a matter of, do you want to hone it in a certain direction or not? Right? First question from Vincent. What is higher self? How will it help us if we channel it? How I teach you to fully and naturally and accurately access higher self is by understanding the concept of embodiment. This is why the class is called Embody Your Higher Self. The best way to talk to your higher self is to stop thinking that it is separate, because it is not. So this is the way God works. You guys have watched me do this particular, I don't have my fork here today. For those of you who have watched my teachings for a long time, I have this fork that I used to teach with. You remember that? Yeah, I call it my higher self fork, or my soul fork, we were lovingly calling it. So I'm just going to use my hand today. So if all this is God, when God begins this process of humans on earth and beings everywhere, it's a process that you call separation, that activates within the concept of duality, the concept of light and dark and good and bad, and all these things that you make out of it is just one thing or another that you make out of it based upon beliefs. But God decided it wanted to see itself, and there you are. There you are. That's how powerful God is. There you are. There all the animals are. There all the trees are. Just like that. Not one behind the other. This is not a linear concept. So just follow along with me in this concept. So God wanted to see itself. So God fractalized itself and then suddenly had an arm. And God said, oh, okay, well, that's good. But maybe I want to be a bunch of different things at the same time. And suddenly you have 5 fingers. All right. So you are of God. And what you need to do is understand there's not a disconnect between this and this being your body and all these things here being fractals of your soul. So higher self is a whole being that is your soul. Okay. And all this is spirit. All this is spirit. These are fractals of your soul. So this gives you access to your talents, your unique personality characteristics, your what you call strengths and weaknesses. And when you understand that, some people called it various things. You will look up, you'll get a name for something and you're like, that's my spirit guide. Well, it's you in another life. And then you call it past lifetimes. But in spirit, there is no past and there is no future. Everything is available right now. And all the things that you think are past and future, you are doing simultaneously. Wrap your head around that. In source, there is no time, right? So what ego is, what personality is, ego utilizes personality, which is utilized by thoughts, which can be controlled by breath, these thoughts. Ego is a tool through which soul operates. Soul cannot operate without ego. You are not here to diminish your ego or to abandon it, betray it, or kill it. You're not here to try to separate from it. That concept that you, in order to be a good channel, must get rid of ego is very deflating and a little mean. It's a little mean to yourself. You can have a personality without an ego. You can have a body without an ego, because if you didn't have an ego, you would not have a mind construct. So ego is a tool, right? So ego is kind of like your car. And you need something to drive it, but you don't drive, you don't get places without ego. You don't travel, you don't learn, you don't expand without ego. All right. So that's going to, put a lot of hairs up on everybody's neck when it comes to, you might get some people that are a little offended who have spent most of their time detaching and using detachment processes to get rid of ego. All right. So you are all spirit, which means you are all source simultaneously. You are one within all. Again, back to this concept. You are one being. This might be a concept of you. This might be a concept of personality, strength, or weakness, whatever you want to call it. These are all driven by the construct of ego in the thought process, just up here, just using our hand as an analogy. All right. And all this is spirit. Spirit wanted to pretend it was separate, but doing that isn't incredibly helpful when it comes to utilizing creativity. If you want to destroy ego, ego embodies and captures creativity so that you can utilize it. So you can't enjoy relationships with people. You can't enjoy friendships, romantic relationships, relationships with your pets, relationships with other egos. You can't enjoy the concept of relationship without ego, right? So the concept of oneness being you destroy ego, you wouldn't be alive if you did that. Every single person I know, every enlightened being, including the Dalai Lama and all the famous enlightened beings, have egos. I watched the Dalai Lama get pissed as all get out and transmuted in less than 30 seconds with one single breath. That's how mastered and controlled his ego is. So it's not a matter of pushing ego away in order to channel. It's a matter of taming ego and letting your breath be its master. The heart is the master of the mind and all of its constructs, not the other way around. Don't let your mind tell your body what to do. Don't let your mind control your breathing. Let your breath control your mind, and then your mind can adequately function for you, because you as a spirit being are its master. So you are here to master emotions, not the other way around. You're not here to let emotions and ego master you. They are powerful tools, these minds and bodies, right? Let's see. Scroll down to the next question. I am blocked. I can't receive energy anymore, and I don't know why. I'm doing sun gazing 11 minutes now, but I'm blocked all the way. So let's start with the basics. What are you eating? Get back to me. What are you eating, and do you have a spiritual practice? Those are the two basics that you must master if you're going to become a peaceful and powerful and accurate channel. Sometimes, though, you don't receive energy because you don't need to. It could be your mind's way of saying, whoa, you're putting the cart before the horse. So the mind will put the horse in a bit of a timeout. If the horse is the ego, it'll say, we're not going to give you a tool to channel right now because something's wrong in the mind or body and you need a break. That happens because a degree of emotional integration is required in order for you to safely channel. So that could be another reason for that block. Is the ego, personality, and higher self all separate from each other? I think I answered that earlier, linking axiom. So you can go back and do that. They are all a part of each other. They cannot be separate. It's not a hierarchy. They cannot be separate. They work with each other. They are within each other. So it's sort of like, I don't have this tool around me because I think I gave it to my daughter, but consider this being, imagine a Russian doll. You guys ever played with those? So nesting dolls. If there's one on the outside, that would actually be spirit. People think of mind, body, spirit as in, your spirit's inside, contained by your body. I would like for you to consider it the other way around. So I can probably draw that for you so you understand. I'll draw the standard model, and then I'll tell you what's really happening. So the standard model of mind, body, spirit is body, then mind, then spirit somewhere in here. That your body contains all this and your spirit somewhere up here. I'm going to teach you differently than that because that is not what I see and know as truth. It's actually spirit out here. Out here. Spirit contains a mind right here. And then mind works with ego, kind of here, and body is more like this. Okay? So you need to understand that in order to understand how they work within each other. So in realization, actualization, enlightenment, awakening, Kundalini, awakening, all these words you use, this needs to tell this what to do. Okay? Spirit needs to tell mind what to do. Mind tells ego how to create. Mind then tells you to breathe. And when you're aware of your breath, finally, body can create. You need mind and body to be in sync together at the same time. But you also need your mind to be in control before your body will be healthy and productive for you. So in order to unblock things, you really got to work with the mind and the ego and the emotions and the body. So what is opposite about New Age teachings is that primarily you are taught to open up the Kundalini, open up the spirit energy first, which, by the way, isn't always the best place to start because spirit is completely unlimited with no beliefs and is coming up against the beliefs that you have been taught your entire life. And your mind thinks that those beliefs keep you safe, which is why sometimes in channeling, you notice that most channels are just a little out there because they completely operated with the pyramid upside down. They just kind of went, they're a top down awakened being, not a bottom up. So when you get the mind functional and the body functional, start with the breath. The mind will tell the body how to be functional. The mind will also tell the spirit that it's ready finally and safe to wake up. And then the spirit will begin to actually tell the mind and body how to be more balanced. But if you don't begin by ridding yourself of beliefs that are going to freak you out about spirit, and then you start to activate spirit without having a balanced mind or body, it can be the most destructive thing possible. This is why in psychiatric units, you see people diagnosed with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, all sorts of things. Psychosis of all kind happen when the mind is not balanced accurately and adequately. So you can do that by integrating emotions, by eating well, and by having a daily spiritual practice. You can do that by proper pratyahara, which in New Age you call that frequency management or energy management. So that's the grounding, the cleansing, the protection, all those words you all use. As a yogi, we call that pratyahara, which means to draw in energy when you need it and to draw back energy when you don't. That is your ultimate mastery for channeling, because otherwise it all happens. You don't know what it is. You freak out. You get distracted. You go insane. Health problems happen. Mind problems happen, et cetera, et cetera. So when you learn pratyahara, which I am going to be teaching on my channel today at 1 p.m. on Patreon, when you learn more pratyahara for cleansing and releasing energy that doesn't serve you and for pulling in energy when it does serve you and the distinction between the two, then you're going to be a bomb channel. You're going to be amazing. Okay? So start there. Let me see. I'm just scrolling through questions. I have been struggling. This is from Rebecca. I've been struggling with anxiety and being anxious lately for no reason. Is that due to the shift happening? So I just love this about New Age teachings. The shift isn't just one thing. It's a process that involves several steps. And what you learn on YouTube is kind of like the fast food of spirituality. It's like, here it is, and now you know. Don't you feel better? No, I don't. The shift has been going on for the past 20 years. And the shift happens in stages. If it didn't, you'd all, in the shift, you would lose your shit. It would be the shift without the F in there. So the shift happens in stages. So what if, and just play with me for a moment, we all decided to stop attributing our emotions to a shift, the energies, the lion's gate, the this, the that, the that, the that, the that. Like, those are powerful energies. But what if we just focused on the fact that we're anxious and we don't have to have a reason? What if it happens to do with food? What if it happens to do with not having proper pratyahara and a proper spiritual practice, which could happen to anyone? And then, of course, you have the shifts, the various degrees of shifting. I'm playing with my carnelian crystals this morning. Aren't they pretty? I love carnelian. It's one of my favorites. Who am I kidding? All crystals are my favorites. So what if we just focused on what we're here to master, which is emotions? And if you want to master emotions, which you need to in order to become a good channel, you need a daily spiritual practice. which is what I teach primarily on Patreon, is the basis of that for tier 2, which is the Kripa Yoga, is how to breathe, how to pick your practice, how to work through these kind of things, and understanding that anxiety is there to tell you that your spirit's getting a little out of hand and that you need grounding. You don't have proper pratyahara. What is pratyahara? Again, for those of you just joining, knowing when to draw in energy to nourish yourself or to draw back energy when you need to cleanse, protect, etc. Purify your field. So that is why you're anxious. And the majority of that happens in American society because of a very stripped biome in our soils, waters, and air. We don't have proper nourishment. And if you don't take care of this, the body, then you can't take care of anything else. It's hard. Channels, you guys have the hardest time with bodies. We have the hardest time with bodies possible. So it's when you start there, healing the body and the mind, you're gonna really, as opposed to like blaming it on the shift or blaming it on the Lionsgate or blaming it on the moon. New Agers like to go there. They're like, it's the full moon coming up, or it's my period, or it's this, that, and the other. No, it's just you don't have a proper practice. There's not proper pratyahara. What do you mean by that? Jamil. Jamil says, I've heard that negative beings attempt to target people in New Age channeling movements. I've found more targeting happening from humans. I have been targeted more by humans with foul intentions in the New Age channeling movement. I've been attacked. I've been betrayed. I've been outright blasted, had my personal life blasted all over Instagram by someone. I've had everything that I used to be such an authentic person, and I used to come on YouTube and tell you guys anything about my life, and then people that I trust would ruin that. So it's mostly humans that target people in New Age channeling movements. In New Age movements, there tend to be, because you're taught to be so open and so vulnerable and so trusting, when you're taught oneness, that you can easily become victims of narcissists and sociopaths particularly. So I find more that's a human problem than a problem with beings, spirit beings. Just saying, it's just something I notice. Let's see, scrolling through questions, give me a second. Greta, yeah, if you need to do so, you need to do it. Who knows if the walk away is temporary or permanent, but if you need to set boundaries because of narcissistic behavior, it doesn't help your spiritual practice when you deal with a very narcissistic world. And that's not just in our families. You'll find narcissism anywhere. It's there because of improper parenting. So you're going to find that everywhere, not just in your family. I find that when you heal your feelings involved with your family, no matter what that takes, even if it takes tough love and walking away from them, whatever it takes, when you heal or take a break from them, whatever you need to do, when you heal the narcissistic wounding from family, you get so deeply integrated in yourself spiritually. That's the best thing you can do. Heal your families, heal the world. So what all the ascended masters and all the deceased yogis tell me is that you need to work within, and then in your family underneath your roof, and then in your family that's not under your roof, then in your neighbors and local environment, then at state level, then at world level, and you can't even get to any of the higher things if you don't start here. So what I notice about spiritual communities in the United States is that everybody starts wanting to heal the world when they haven't started here or with their families. So it's backwards again. Yeah, you guys want to jump to the good stuff, but the good stuff's in here. From Teresa, she says, surely you are accountable in whatever veil you reside. Yes, absolutely. In the human field, surely we must strive for love, compassion, and empathy. Yeah. Olivia, that's so true. She said, I feel blocked simply by the belief that I'm blocked. Yes. Don't get me started. Um, I teach my students in my mentorship programs that when you're trying to open your abilities, that when you say I'm blocked, the first thing the ego just kind of just goes, oh, F it, you're blocked. Maybe you should just turn on the TV. Maybe you can just forget about it. Maybe the spiritual path isn't for you. The ego goes in all of these directions, right? Um, but what if you just stop saying you're blocked and you stop paying attention to how you feel when you feel disconnected from source and from your abilities? And you just start focusing on reconnection. And you don't worry about when or under what circumstances the block will return. Otherwise, it just feels so diminishing and painful to be operating in that block. You got to just stop believing you're blocked and keep going. From Solar Warden, he says, I'm eating a lot of meat. Okay, stop. Particularly industrialized meat. We talked about that a lot in my first 2 mini classes about food and why you shouldn't eat meat. So just do a refresh on that. Let's see. He says also some juices from fruits and vegetables. Are you using a juicer? Because when you get the processed juices, they mainly just are sugar. Yeah, not a lot of actual fruit juice in there. They're worried it's going to go bad, which it often does. So make sure you're juicing it yourself. A lot of cheese. Yeah, you got to stop. I know you guys don't like it when I say this. Cheese is coagulated cow pus. The FDA has to come in and basically regulate the dairy industry because there's so much pus in milk and cheese. And you can't get it out because of the way in the industrialized industry, because of the way the cows are treated. It's like there's a lot of pus because I don't want to get into the why. It's really sad. Okay, it's because of trauma. It's because of the way the cows are treated, and then the pus gets in the milk. There's just no way. So it's coagulates right in there with the cheese. So you're eating infection is what you're eating. I can't process that. I can't see how that could possibly be good for you. And as a medical intuitive, I've seen nothing but bad stuff from people who eat cheese. It's almost worse than meat, quite frankly. So just don't be so hard on yourself, but go a little bit at a time. You can't go cold turkey when you've been eating your whole life in this way, because that would be really emotionally hard, but just a little bit at a time. Okay. Yeah. He said, I can't meditate for 3 weeks now. That could be it. Yeah. Hold on. I've got so many questions. So I'm just kind of scrolling. From James Deluzio. When first channeling, is it best to choose a being to channel or just meditate and remain open? It's best to learn about you. It's best to try to channel your higher self first. It takes a lot of integration with that to be able to even handle ascended masters. I was taught top down. What I mean by that is when I was a child, I opened up to my spiritual abilities at age 5, and I began immediately. Literally, I had a vision. No one else could see it but me and my little brother, and he was a baby. He was in the crib looking at it, so he doesn't remember. But I was about somewhere between 5 and 8 is what I remember. And I just remember him shaking his crib, and I remember this being in the door of the bedroom that walked in, and he was just tall and full of light, and it was motioning for me to come. And I never told my mom what happened. I just asked her, I said, Mom, if an angel tells you to come to it, is it okay to come? And she was like, I don't know. Or whatever. I can't really remember what she said, but that was my first experience. So I couldn't integrate the mind. I didn't even have a mind to integrate that much. I thought everything was just peace and innocence and love. But as I got older and had all sorts of political and religious beliefs put into me, by church and educational systems, it started to get scary. So what I learned is that when you open up, it's best to start with your higher self. It really, really, really is. Is you have no way to really understand what's happening otherwise, much less handle what's happening with ascended masters and angels. Well, solar, I'd say if your wife can do that, if she can, you know, in 15 minutes calm down, she's got amazing pratyahara skills. I teach pratyahara. I have, I think about 20 classes of it now in Kripa Yoga, which is on tier 2 of my Patreon channel. So I don't want to teach pratyahara too much today because those are techniques that we're going to be going over in the channeling event that's coming up on September the 12th. And it's all about this kind of stuff in order to unblock you, and doing tapping, quick tapping in order to unblock you as well. But there are going to be at least 5 pratyahara practices shared there as well. Or you can just go to Patreon and start practicing it right away, like today at tier 2. So I'll link all that below later. But I don't want to go over too much of it today because there's going to be a huge long class about channeling coming up on September the 12th. Again, that one's at PamelaAaralyn.com. That's the one that I'm promoting today for you because I'm so excited about it. I love to teach channeling. It's just, and I love to teach it in a way that actually makes sense, that people can do and that they can get a grasp on, easy ways to channel and safe ways to channel. So I'm teaching that on September the 12th. You can just register at PamelaAaralyn.com. Okay, scrolling down from Pancake, I have been automatic writing for the past 4 months with no outcome. Okay, so stop. I eat sattvic foods and have had a spiritual practice for a long time. That's good. What am I doing wrong? I also do Shambhavi, Mahamudra. Okay, maybe switch that mudra. I'm not familiar with that, but what I'm intuiting with that is probably try something else there. It's not a matter of doing something wrong, but I'm not so familiar with Ayurvedic eating, with eating for your dosha as most people. So I don't know what you mean by sattvic foods. So if your foods are in the right place and you're not eating cheese, or you're not eating dairy of any kind or meat of any kind, and you still haven't had outcome, perhaps your tool is not right. Perhaps you're a more natural channel, in which case what you can start with is inquiry. So inquiry is when you ask a question. See, God within you, spirit already knows all the answers. So it doesn't ask questions, and it doesn't tell you either because you already know. It's only mind and ego that thinks that you don't, that thinks that there needs to be questions. So if you want to activate and really pump that spirit up and get it talking through you, ask it questions. Because spirit has nothing to say because it already knows the answers. It's your mind that wants it to say something. Your spirit doesn't really want to say something. It knows everything. You're born with everything that you need to live the life that you have contracted to live on this planet. So spiritually speaking, you have all that within you. In order to get it out, inquiry helps. Learn to ask the right questions. So we'll be talking more about that on September the 12th, how to ask the right questions. Hint, they need to be simple questions. It just gets the mind involved when you ask really questions more than like 6 words. You have this long. Okay, so spirit, I want to know why I'm not channeling and why it isn't working with automatic writing. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean at all. So you can either, in alchemy, we call these commands, and in yoga, we call it inquiry. So in alchemy, the way to go into that is to give your spirit a command. So here's an example of that. Wait until you're getting ready to go to sleep. You probably have a really active mind, the person who asked that question. So wait until you're getting ready to go to sleep. Your brain will tune out. It'll go from active beta waves, which is what you are aware of in your mind when you're thinking and speaking, to throughout all the levels of consciousness, all the way down to theta. So it'll go to beta, to alpha, to theta, to eventually more deep somnambulistic states. So in the somnambulistic states, that you can reach those by asking a question or giving a command to higher self. A command is just not a nasty thing. When we use the word command, people think weird things. But when you say something short and sweet, that's either a question or a command, inquiry or command, then you say that in the hypnagogic space. That space is in between beta and somnambulistic. So in between beta and theta, you're going through all the other stages of your brain waves. So if you say something like, name of dominant spirit guide, that is a command. Meeting with spirit guide, that is a command. I remember one of my first alchemy commands for connecting with higher self. I was sitting there with Jesus one day when I was a little girl, and I was doing my prayers because I was raised Southern Baptist, and I was doing my prayers. He said, so what do you want to do tonight? I said, oh, I want to meet all my angels. He was like, what? Like, I made Jesus flinch. He was like, oh, no, sweet child, no. Like, but why? Angels are so pretty. You've only let me see 3. I want to see all my angels. And he was like, as you wish. Just like Princess Bride, right? It was like that. As you wish, child. And he said, say this. And he gave me a little inquiry. He said, meeting with soul group of angels. So I said, meeting with soul group of angels. I'm like, where am I going to go have a meeting? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. So I ended up in this place called Spirit School. That's what all my guides call it. And it wasn't a few. It wasn't hundreds. I'd say it wasn't millions, but it was thousands. And it wasn't even like 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000. Apparently, I require a lot of angels. So I was a little overwhelmed. And he jumped in my dream immediately because I just was so, my little body started to shake in my bed. And I had a little mini seizure. Not medically, but my body just started shaking. It couldn't handle all the light that was pouring through it as like a little, I think I was 8 when that happened, actually, because I was in first grade. Yeah, and I was just, since then, from that point on, I actually had so many issues trying to pay attention in class in first grade that my mom held me back because I kept seeing all those angels. And she's like, why are you daydreaming so much? I'm like, I can't even, you won't. You won't believe me, because I would try to tell my parents things and tell my teachers things, and they would write on my report card, Pamela is such a dreamer. Pamela might be like, have an overactive imagination, Or they'd say, she tells a lot of stories, like implying that I'm lying, and all sorts of stuff happens when you're that young and you start talking about those kind of things. So I wouldn't make it too big. Start small. Ask to meet your guardian spirit angel, your guardian angel. And do it in the hypnagogic space. You can't do it when you're just walking around the house. I mean, you can, but you don't get anywhere because the mind will block it. Because of religion and politics and family, the way that you're raised, parenting conditions as well, you're taught that those things are dangerous, or that those things aren't real, or that you shouldn't be focusing on those things. So the brain will actually put up a defense mechanism that prevents that. It's like ingrained in you. So this is why you do it in between sleeping and waking, or waking and sleeping. So as you're going to bed, or when you're waking up but not quite awake, that's the hypnagogic space. That's when you need to ask these questions or use these commands. So I literally know thousands of them, and I'm going to be talking about more of these commands and inquiries in my class on September the 12th. So those were just a few. I know thousands. So, and those things really help unblock those commands and inquiries. So all these techniques, again, September the 12th, PamelaAaralyn.com. Scroll down and you'll see the little link right up under the Abraham Lincoln GIF. I got that challenge coming up too. But right up underneath that one, you'll see that class called Embody Your Higher Self. That's the one you want to learn all this stuff. It's a really powerful class. Questions. Let's see. Anne McGuire, you bring up a really incredible point that's really true. She said, I have many distractions, so I'm feeling challenged with that. Earth is one giant distraction. That's actually that's so much conditioning away from spirituality that in order to make it a practice, you have to make it a priority. If you don't, you won't be able to do what I do. You won't be able to do it your own way. What I'm taught to do as a spiritual teacher, I teach you to do what I do in your own way. But you won't be able to find your way with that if you have those distractions. So what I did, and this is a real practical thing, and this is hard. I'm going to teach you one of my really powerful tricks, but it's hard and it's practical. Here's what you need to do. This is real life pratyahara. Why do you need 100 friends? I have 5. Seriously, 5. I can count them. I can tell you their names. I know them very well. We talk almost on a daily basis. Three of them, particularly Russ and Robina. We talk on a daily basis, almost every single day. These are my 2 best friends, and then there's my friend Leanne, who's also my roommate. You see what I mean? I have 5 close friends. My friend Elizabeth, who's my kind of every now and then friend because we're so busy. I have 5 friends. That's it. And my friend Eilish. So those are my friends in my circle. So make your circle smaller. Your family circle, I understand, but why do you need to talk to family every single day? My mom and I text good morning and good night, but we do not talk every single day. We're both too busy for that, right? I talk to my mom like once a week. You need to manage your time better. So look at what you're doing. I want you to start making charts for yourself. This starts with what you're thinking about the moment you get up that you shouldn't be thinking about instead of a spiritual practice. So if it's money, which is the majority of what most people think about, especially right now, you need to go through your bank account and get rid of all things that are pulling you away from your connection to yourself and your spiritual practice, or most things. I understand that you need food, you need, utilities, things of that nature. But do you really need the trip to Starbucks every day? Probably not. That's probably not as important as your spiritual practice. This is why when people complain about my $13 a month on Patreon, I kind of go, because I know what I shouldn't know. It's hard as a psychic. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I know that person spends more money on Starbucks than they do on their own spiritual practice, right? And then they complain that they don't feel well, or that they have anxiety, or that they can't talk to their guides. You've got to put yourself a priority. If you want this and finances are blocking it, get rid of Netflix for a few months until you get your practice straight. It's not going to hurt you. Do you see what I'm saying? There's things that are hiding. When you say I can't afford a spiritual practice, it actually really isn't true, right? It doesn't even have to be me that is teaching your spiritual practice. You don't have to invest in me. What if your spiritual practice is in a little $9 book that you can get, and it's permanent and it gives you different meditations? Here's one that I really love. This is the Essene Book of Meditations and Blessings, the 4th edition by Danan Parry, Perry. One of my patrons advised this for me, and for some reason, when I really can't figure out what I want to do for my practice, I just go, yeah, this one. This is my morning focus. Morning focus. It says, Divine Mother, in this season of the flowers, I bow to you in humble awe. The brilliant colors of my blossoms are growing now, soon to be fruit. I feel the need to give to you for all that you have given to me. And through the moment, and though the moment is not yet right, one day my fruit will yield its seed to your sweet earth. And then they've got an evening focus as well. They've got a place to journal your feelings. They've got summer solstice practices, in here, different things like this. I love this summer solstice practice for June. This is my favorite one. See, I'm showing you some of my favorite books. For this summer solstice practice, it says, Saturday, I will bring the spirit of love for all beings to blank. And it's got something for you to put in the blank. And that's your affirmation that you say during your meditation and throughout your day. Do that kind of thing. And then just breathe for a moment. Clear your mind for a moment. Then get up and go about your day and start trying to practice and channel. Right? So do little practices that clear your life of practical things that are getting in your way. I'm going to give you another practical thing that gets in my way. I wish I could move my camera right now so you can see my disgustingly dirty desk. Oh my gosh. I've got 2 hair clips. And I just went in here and cleaned it up yesterday, but it's already this way again because I do so much in here. I've got 5 mystery school books. I've got an extra phone over here, for when the kids call at school. I've got a fan that I don't use. I've got a ring light that I never turn on because apparently my face gets too bright when I use any light on it these days. I've got a singing bowl over here out that I'm not going to use. Like, why is it here right now? I've got 18 crystals on my desk. So these are little things that you can just clear these things. It's like dusting out your soul just by dusting your desk. Can I get an amen on that? Oh my gosh. And then little things. Go in there and make yourself a juice. I did that this morning and I'm feeling great. I wasn't prior to then. I was feeling really bad prior to then, actually. Maybe taking a morning swim. Get up before the kids and get up and take a morning swim if you have a pool or a hot tub. Maybe just taking a shower by yourself. I remember I have 4 kids and they're all 3 of them are very close together in age, and it was hard to even take a shower. And that was my spiritual practice. It was all that I had when they were babies. You guys remember those days? I'm like, I can't do a YouTube today. I need a shower. So the shower became my spiritual practice because I would chant in the shower. 10 minutes of spiritual practice in the shower. Don't tell me you can't do it. Clean out your bank account, clean out your house, clean out your bedroom closet, clean out your pantry. I can't stand it when I'm getting ready to cook and I can't find my pots, and when people move things. So that's a spiritual practice for me. I turn on my yoga chanting, my sacred music, and I clean out the kitchen. It's just this little thing that I like to do when I'm having a bad day. I don't know. What if these things are your spiritual practice? So this is life pratyahara. This can really improve your practice, because when all this stuff is clear, then your mind won't say, you know what, you can't meditate right now. You can't do any chanting right now. Look at your dirty kitchen. You can't do any chanting right now. Look at all this money that came out of your bank account because you forgot to close 6 subscriptions that you don't even need, whatever the case is. Right. This is life pratyahara. And JJ, what I just told you is exactly the answer to your question. You said, how can I increase passion in my life? These kind of practices do it. You got to have room for passion. You have to make room for it. Passion is a big energy, especially if you are who I think you are. Are you the musician? My musician friend JJ, he's really good, guys. You should check him out. He's so good. He's here today in chat. JJ, you should link up your iTunes account. He's really good. Oh my gosh. And he has the most amazing gifts. As a musician, the best way to increase your passion is to pick up your damn guitar or piano, or in my case, singing bowls and voice, whatever the case is. Learn a new instrument, create a new song, For you, it's water, JJ. So water, we're going to be talking about the elements as Pratyahara in my class coming up on September the 12th, and how you can use basic elements to cleanse, ground, and shield. Okay. Those things are really, really necessary for increasing your passion, for getting rid of depression, for releasing anxiety and healing anxiety so that you can channel. And Jen's going to be providing a lot of taps for those things. I know you guys love her taps. So when you work with us and you tell us what the block is, she can give you a tap to release the block quickly. I can give you practices that help you stay that way. So that's why we're teaching this class together about channeling. All right. Again, September the 12th on that. Please go sign up because I'm trying to keep it a small class. It's still small, but it may not be by the time we get there next week or whatever. It may not be. You never know. What about vibrating feet? Make sure it's not a medical problem. Some people think that it's just a spiritual problem when they actually have a health problem that requires attention. Yeah. So that's just my sense. Make sure that it's not tingling is different than vibrating. Tingling is a medical problem. All right. And it's easy to confuse the two because they feel very, very similar, but tingling will eventually start to hurt. It'll eventually start to feel little pins and needly. What are foods that are conducive to healthy channeling? Now, this is where eating for your dosha is incredible for your body type, and not just your body type, but your type as a whole, your dosha. That's mental, body, physiological, psychological construct, and spiritual. What is your type? So you can do any sort of dosha quiz or just go to an Ayurvedic practitioner to find your dosha. Either way. Yeah, I'm Pitta. That's my type. So I eat primarily for that type as much as I can. But there are certain things that are really conducive to healthy channeling that are not in that Ayurvedic diet suggestion, such as ash gourd and cantaloupe, two of the highest frequency foods on the planet. Fruits as a whole are conducive to healthy channeling. Absolutely conducive to healthy channeling, particularly ash gourd and cantaloupe. Yeah. I don't want to get too much into crystals today or orgonite. Let's see. Still reading questions. Give me a second. Sandra, I'm reading your question, but I just have to say before I read it aloud that every time a student or someone who sits with me for a reading comes to me and says, I have been told that, I just go. You guys know what I mean? Especially if it's something like I've been told I have a curse. Curses only work when you consciously believe in them. They just don't work otherwise. You have to believe in them and be aware that you believe in them. She says, I've been told I have a sentient curse that stops me from accessing my full abilities. I used to see clear vibrations and recently less. Yeah, go over this YouTube later. There are many, many ways you can unblock your abilities, and curses. That's not what does it. I mean, I don't want to make it out to be like something that's not a problem, because if you live in Africa, oh my gosh, it's a really big problem in that portion of the world because belief systems are pretty much you're programmed to believe in curses. The same for other countries as well, right? Hold on, the screen just jumped on me and I lost all the questions. How can you do the source tones? You can get them at PamelaAaralyn.com. I used to offer them for free on Patreon, but I got really overwhelmed by giving away. I did it for like over a year. I gave away thousands of free source stones and I burned myself out. So I stopped doing that. Yeah. Going back to sattvic foods, you're saying that they're raw foods. Is that what it is? I find that the more raw you can get for channeling, the better. I have at least one raw meal a day, normally breakfast or lunch. If I can't get in a raw breakfast because I am fasting, which I do fast a lot for breakfast, then I will have like a salad and something raw for lunch normally. And if I can't do that, I will do it for dinner. At least 1/3 of your diet, at the very minimum, should be raw to be a clear channel. It's not hard to do. We don't need as many meals a day as we think that we do. So just take one meal and have fruit, veggies, and raw stuff. Can someone steal your karma and you end up with theirs? Okay, so on Earth, anything's possible if your belief system lines up with it. If that belief system that you have is that strong, it is possible. What is the most accessible way to channel your higher self? Depends upon your definition of accessible, but for most people, it's by getting the thoughts out of the way. Now, notice she didn't say the easiest. That would have been a different answer. But the easiest is not always the safest or the most accessible. So the easiest way is chanting sacred tone. The most accessible way, so I chant Vedas. You see all those Vedas back there? They are for a reason. It's not because I'm a religious being. It's not at all. I'm not Hindu. I just love Vedas. They do something when I sing them. So I'm still in that process. My Sanskrit is absolutely horrible. Like I'm doing the best thing that I can to learn it, but it takes some time. When you chant Vedas, they're incredible. That's an easy way, but it opens up something. Notice I didn't say the most accessible. It just opens up something, and if you're not prepared for it, it can be really powerful. So I never suggest someone that has any issues with psychosis or untamed Kundalini energies to be working with chanting the Vedas. But it'll open you straight up. It will. So I do that a lot on Patreon. For Tier 5 in particular, we sing Vedas, at least 2, 3, 4 times a year. And I love it. I love to sing Vedas. My first album, one of the songs was a Veda, and my second album, 2 of the songs came, I think 2 came from Vedas. Yeah, 2. The Vedic Invocation of Power and Strength, and then the Vedic Karmic Clearing. They're both from Vedas. One from the Atharva Veda, and the other one from Samaveda. Yeah. Oh wait, no, it was Rig Veda. Was the Vedic power, invocation of power, was the Rig Veda from my second album. I sang it. So that's one way to channel your higher self, is listen to that and sing along, right? But most accessible, you got to clear your thoughts if you want the most accessible way. So do the one technique. So that's taught in Kripa Yoga 2 in class 1 and 2 on my Patreon channel. That's the most accessible way. And sing your source tone is the second most accessible way. Well, it's not really. Sally J.M. asked if someone is not with their oneness, what happens when they pass? That's up to their soul contracts and their belief. So dharma and karma are both still active normally in an unrealized being when they pass. This is why in near-death experiences, you will see people, you'll hear a lot about people talking about experiences of hell or heaven or meeting Jesus, because their beliefs karmically are still quite active if they're not realized beings. Adam, I don't know what that is. I don't have that belief system. So I don't know what you mean by AI grid system. It's not in my beliefs, or it may be something that I know what it is, but you're using a different term that I'm unaware of. So could you explain to me what that is? I don't, I teach for my own cognition. So a lot of the other things that you find with other New Age teachers, I won't know what the heck they're talking about because it's not, I only teach what's relevant for humanity at this time. Sorry, I'm having a low vision day. With retinitis pigmentosa, it's up and down with the vision, and today is not a great day with it. Ella, she said I took shrooms and channeled for the first time. Oh boy. My entire body was under control, and I was, what? I don't know. I don't understand these terms that you mean because it says I was in the BKGRNDOF of my mind. I don't know if that's a typo or if this is some technology that I don't understand. I'm like, what's that? On the video, I look schizophrenic, she says. She said, how could I find out who and what that was? You don't need to know who and what that was. If you did, it would be happening when you're conscious and aware of it. So many people are attempting to go into states that they don't understand when they can't even figure out who they are when they're awake and aware. So understand who you are in your waking life before you start trying to trance, and then you won't ever need to mess around with psychotropics at all. Unless you are a qualified shaman or under the assistance of a qualified shaman, you're not going to get far with psychotropics in terms of safety, and you'll just get a bunch of experiences that you don't understand anyway. Now, do they open you up? Do they activate you? Can they be healing? Yes. But then when your mind tries to wrap around it and you're trying to understand who and what it is, you don't really need all of that. But you come out of it and you're like, well, why did that just happen? Your mind wants to figure it out. The mind always wants to do this. But that's not the reason why to do the psychotropics. That should never be the reason why. Because that's just like licking icing off the cake. The cake of that experience is when you were in that trance. That's something that was necessary for that moment. And if it were necessary for you to be aware of in this moment, you would have the awareness, right? So this is kind of like, did your shaman tell you? Or were you with a shaman? This is why you need qualified shamans for this. One of the shamans that I fully worked with is here today in chat. Her name is Christina Ribot. So that's Christina and then Ribao. She is a qualified shaman. So if you sit with a qualified shaman, you're going to get a lot more out of these experiences. Otherwise, they can be just sort of like fun at the time, but then your mind just wants to control it later, right? Thanks for the super chats, guys. Edna says, I only have a strong sense of knowing. I wish I could experience more thinning of the veil. Okay, release this thought of the veil. Pretend it's not there. The alleged veil, like when I was 5 years old, I saw it lift before my eyes. When I saw those beings, I looked up at the ceiling, and the ceiling wasn't there in my bedroom. It was just a sky. I could see all the extraterrestrials in it. I could see the angelics. I could see so many different interdimensional beings that I didn't understand right away. And then Halal said to me, this is why people aren't born the way that you were born. They don't wake up at this early age because that's how scary it is. I cried. I wasn't sure what to do. So most people are born with precognition, retrocognition, and claircognition. One, if not all, of those three things. Everyone. When you have that sense of knowing and you want more, figure out your spiritual practice and your food, and then begin understanding Pratyahara, and then whatever's supposed to happen from there will happen from there. Okay, so majority of people are not born with clairvoyance or clairaudience. They're not born with seeing or hearing, which is okay. It comes when it's supposed to come, right? Still scrolling through questions. Give me a second. I'm seeing a lot of comments, and I'm about midway through the scrolling, and you guys are talking amongst each other, which is awesome. But keep in mind, it takes me a lot longer to get to questions if I just see a bunch of comments because I don't see well. Um, what you experience, Bet, is a physical mediumship symptom. So, as a physical medium, you're going to feel it more through the body. That's common. So, those are just standard awakening experiences that happen because your head is less active when you're asleep. Is there a trick to help forgive people that have wronged you? Really want to move on, but painful memories are holding me back. Write a loving letter. And I stress the word loving. Yeah, write a loving letter. Just and here's the second thing. In the letter, you also need to ask forgiveness. The trick with forgiveness is that it takes two to tango. This is really, really hard, and you guys are going to challenge me. You're going to say so many things. But what you're doing when you say, I'm sorry, is you're owning your part of the experience. And there are only a few exceptions. There are only a few exceptions, and those exceptions are like murder, rape, really horrible exceptions like that. But in most circumstances that we can't forgive, um, it's something that we could have unknowingly had a part of that that we're just unaware of most of the time. So when you say, I'm sorry for my part in this, for whatever that may have been, you're clearing the energy of the karmic interactions, weaving in and out of the time experiencing between the two of you. Things that you know and that you don't know. So if you know you did something or you could have done something, say it. Right? Go back on my YouTube community page and look at my suggestions for forgiveness. That'll help you a lot. I'm not going to link the title of my meditation book with the Essenes, but it is Essene Book of Meditations and Blessings, 4th edition by Danan Parry, Parry. That's the last time. I'm going to repeat it because I want to answer questions. How can I hear my inner song, tone, or sound? Quieting your mind. Think nothing, say nothing, do nothing, sit there and focus on your breath. You can do the one technique. If you must say something, try any inquiry process. I particularly love Sri Ramana Maharshi's inquiry process. It's called self-inquiry. Because when you do that, it's easier to go in that space. Try not to consider hearing your sound. You have to feel your sound. What is your experience with EMFs? Goodness, I have a hard time with that. I have 2 monitors. My Wi-Fi is not in my office, but for some reason, people insist upon putting it in most homes. The place will be in your master bedroom closet or someplace close to your bed, which is horrible. So I keep organized devices on top of my router. I also have a product. I'm trying to think. I've had it a long time, so I can't think of the name of it, but it disperses that. And it's from Sweden. The company is from Sweden, and it's a little round product, and it has crystals and minerals inside, and it shines some sort of light through it. And for some reason, it just disperses all the EMFs pretty much if you have a small house in the whole house. So I have one in my office. I have a tiny one for my car that disperses anything coming from my phone. It's portable. Yeah. Something Vedic, something medic. Somamedic is the name of the product. It was a little expensive, but it does work. So I have a few of them in my house. They light up. I don't know if I can. My camera is fairly stationary, and you'll see my dirty desk if I do this, but I can try to turn it. Let's see if I can turn it. So, no, everything is in the way. Okay, so you can't see it. It's not showing it. It's way over there in the corner, and my camera just won't reach it. Sorry. I was going to show it to you. I had good intentions. It's called the Somamedic. Google it up. I'm not going to do the link because I'm busy answering your questions. So that helps me a lot. Can light language be translated? It takes a very gifted person to translate light language. It's possible. I do it all the time, but I'm taught by angels to do it. So it's a very specific thing to be able to do that. Many of light languages are languages from other realms, galactic languages that are kind of pigeoned together. So they are a combination of many languages from wherever you happen to be from in the stars. And if a person is a galactic historian, then they can feel out the language, but you cannot interpret it from your head. It's next to impossible to interpret from your head unless you are a galactic historian who is distinctly familiar with the Syrian language, not Assyrian, Syrian, Sarian, Pleiadian language, Hyadian language, just that one's more rare, Arcturian language. Lemurian language is one of the most common light languages that happen, Lemurian and Pleiadian. How do I know if my guides are around? You feel them. You got to be less distracted. When the voice of spirit is really soft and subtle, so you have to be very tuned in to the frequency of emotion. You have to be tuned in to smells and light and sound. You need to tune into your senses in order to feel out guides, if you're looking to feel out spirit guides. And if you are desensitized because you have the radio on a lot, you have a lot of sound, you live near a lot of traffic, you've got too much smartphone stuff going on. When I'm working with you guys, I turn my phones off, like completely off. You will not be able to get in touch with me. I cannot handle the EMF stuff going on. And it doesn't matter what little stickers I buy to put on my phones that people say deactivates it. I go and I put my phones generally off, completely just off. All of those are energy distractions from your guides and from being receptive enough energetically. So if you live your life in a peaceful way, you are more receptive. You have a spiritual practice, you are more receptive. If you intermittently fast, you are more receptive. If you sing source tones or you do transcendental meditation, you are more receptive. You see where I'm going with this, right? You have to be more receptive to energy. When a person passed, there's too many past and present tense in this question for me to understand it. When a person passes, I don't understand. Can you do it in a proper tense? Because I don't understand. I'm not really good with reading words on the screen and trying to understand. Can you recommend any accurate galactic history books? No. Just straight up no. I don't really believe in the word accurate or inaccurate. I believe that stories are stories and everyone's stories are different. Perhaps if you replace the word with useful, even then it would be hard for me to recommend a useful galactic history book, because your history is just your text. It's your text. Your body is a text. It tells you what's going on in your mind and in your soul, right? Your history is your text, your stories. That's all they are. And because we are not jars with labels on them, we each have different stories, and all the stories are true on this environment and in other environments. The stories are true. So what that looks like is if you really believe in your story, it becomes true for you. So everyone spends their entire life experience seeking one truth, when truth isn't to be found in this environment. What truth is your unique connection to love that is personal to you. So everyone spends their whole life looking for truth. Is this galactic history true? Is that history true? History can be warped for various reasons, and then that becomes true for thousands of people. You want a good example? Look at Irish history. Really. Look at your own history too. In the United States, most of my followers are from the United States. Look at your history books versus what your heart tells you. When I was reading my history books as a student, both in grade school, high school, and university, anytime I would read a history book, I would read something and automatically go, oh my God. I would get visions of the lies that, happened over time for control. So in that way, it's not true, but it becomes true for the thousands to millions to billions of people who believe that their history is a certain thing because books and governments say so. My God, don't get me started on that. Right? So what is truth in that environment? So galactic history, I find, can be useful if you're just looking to figure out why you have certain personality components, why you struggle with certain beliefs and conditionings. But then what? You know why. And then the mind goes, oh, I need more why. If you want me to let it go, just give me a little bit more of that why. Give me a little bit more of that when. Give me a little bit more of these stories. And then I promise you I'll let it go. Nope. The mind will just want more. You'll read through 10, 15, 20 galactic history books, and then you'll just want more and more and more and more and more. And then you wonder why you feel bad. It's sort of like getting hooked on a really bad Netflix show, and you just can't stop watching it because you just want to get to the end. Then you find yourself like skipping. Personal experience here, guys. I've done it. I've done it. I've looked at Netflix and it was so bad that I just went skip. Okay. Yeah, that was the end. Oh, that's what I thought was going to happen anyway. Why did I just waste all my time getting addicted to this show? You guys done that? Yeah. How best can we get children engaged with this information? Start them out gently. You are their parent, so you are the best example. What does spirituality look like for you? You are that example, and they're looking at you. Like pretty much the end. Show them the example. It's not a book that you can teach it from. If you can't teach something that you're not living, right? So live your example is the best way that you can get children involved in spirituality, and be aware of what's going on at school. All right? Be aware and actively engage your children personally, right? Your children are going to start to ask questions about what you're doing, and then you answer and you start to teach them. They're going to ask questions because they're children and it's different from what they're being taught at school. Bye, Jira. So when they begin to have questions, you answer the questions. That's how you actively engage your children. You teach them. I've tried other things. A friend of mine named Robin Ringgold wrote a book, a series of children's books about yoga, about veganism, about self-love, about various things. So you can search her up. These are really good children's books. Esther Hicks, I think, wrote some books as well that are children's books about meditation and certain things. So there's certain books that I like, but my kids didn't. Emmy went through her stages where she read Robin's books for about a whole year, and that helped a lot when she was really little. Anywhere from 4 to 8 was really good for that. Mm-hmm. And I'd say for teenage years, the Esther Hicks children's books are good, but you're not just going to get them to read it if they don't want to. You are the best example. How can I find out my spiritual level? By getting rid of the concept of levels. There is no such thing as spiritual level. Consider yourself a beginner at all times, and don't shame yourself about it. Understand that knowledge isn't the way to open up to abilities. Giving is the way, and serving is the way. Compassion is your ultimate tool. You won't do it if you haven't done forgiveness, which is why I'm writing a book called Course in Forgiveness. All channels need to forgive everything all the time. Channels are the most judgmental people I've ever met because they know so much. So I got rid of judgment in my life. Second thing to work on is attachment. I'm still working on that. Right? And then get rid of these concepts that people teach you. You can't be realized at this. You can't be realized at that. Get rid of the concept of hierarchy, and what the world teaches you about realization is almost completely false because you are not a jar with a label on it. Realization will look different for every single person. And there aren't levels in it. There are stages. So recognize the stages of your spiritual awakening. But there is no such thing as spiritual level. When loved ones die, will we absolutely know who they are when we pass? See, my brain just completely doesn't work that way. So I can't really. My concept of the word who someone is not personal. You know you're a spirit, and you know who they were to you in that lifetime, if that makes sense. You know what role they played. Is this what you're asking me? Sometimes you choose not to meet up with people at all when you pass. But I'm trying so hard to understand what you mean, and I'm just not. She says, when loved ones die, will we absolutely know who they are when we pass? What do you mean by who they are? Will I see my father? I don't know. Some people do, some people don't. But I will tell you that the majority of the people on this planet have belief systems that they want to see their father, and their belief system is that they should see their father or mother. Some people believe that they should see Jesus when they pass, and then that's what happens. So it depends upon, hey, I'm live on YouTube. What's up? Okay. So some people believe that they should actually see their parents, or that they should see Jesus, or that they should see a certain angel, and their belief system becomes so strong that it actually happens. You're still carrying over karmic belief systems. Will you recognize them? I don't know. That is a little bit hard to say. Have you ever watched the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams? And do you remember that part? I don't want to give it away if you haven't. It's such a beautiful movie. Go watch that, and you'll get a really good example of a lot of the common themes that happen after a person passes and then after you pass. It's really, really accurate. Most mediums are probably shaking their head right now because we've seen all these scenarios. Sometimes you will recognize them, sometimes you won't, but inevitably you will at some stage. The thing is, whether you happens right away is a very personal experience that is a script between you and your father that only you and your father know, and perhaps your shaman. Okay, right? So it's a little bit like that. Do you remember that part when he finally recognized that that was his daughter, that was his guide, and he was like, "Oh, why did you choose that for him?" And she was just like, "Well, that's just something that I always said I wanted to look like an experience," and but he didn't recognize. And then you think about what he would have done if he did recognize that it was her, and how he would have reacted, and would he still have gone saved his wife, when she was in that deep dark space? Would he have made the journey through the alleged hell that she had contrived in her belief system so that she could be in a heaven space with him? Like, would he really have followed his own contract if he had met her right away? So we have contracts with various soul families. Those families meet us on earth, and it carries through and the beyond, through the veil. So we can't meet the people that we think we're meant to meet right away because in our script we're not meant to, and we don't know that yet. But then some people are meant to, and only your shaman knows, and you at a higher self level. And the truth is, you don't need to know. You don't. I've told some of my loved ones some things about their contracts that they're just like, no, please tell me I'll be okay. And I tell them, like, yeah, you're not going to have that life review. And then they break down in tears. But then what I didn't tell them, because I didn't have time, because they broke down in tears, is that something more beautiful and powerful was going to happen that could be greater than any life review ever. And they will completely understand it and be at peace with it when it happens. But your ego mind is trained to be afraid if you don't see your father, if you don't see your beloved, if you don't see your child, if you don't have a life review. But what happens sometimes is something completely different than that, that you don't even need a life review, that you don't need to meet them in that space right away because there's perhaps something more powerful that you need to work through before you do meet them. So, or perhaps you don't meet them because you immediately go into another life with them, right? And if you meet them, you would just stay there with them in the spirit world and not experience the next lifetime that you've contracted to have immediately after your death, right? Then you just wouldn't do it. You would just stay in spirit. Not many people actually have those contracts where they stay in spirit. They almost immediately reincarnate, especially when suicide is involved. They almost immediately reincarnate. Right? Yeah, so there's so many things that happen after death. So many things. Is there a spiritual reason for mental illness? Well, examine your question's spiritual reason. Everything has a reason, but it's not something that we comprehend. Sometimes the spiritual reason is, I just wanted to experience this. And there is no mental reason. The spiritual reason is just because we wanted a beautiful experience. We wanted to see the world in a way that we couldn't possibly understand when we were that conditioned by the world. I love it when an insane world tries to dictate what is sane. I've seen more reality when going to visit people inside of psychiatric institutions that I have in the White House. Just saying. How do we go about connecting with a shaman? I know a few. Jen Ward is one of them. She's one of the best. GenuineHealing.com. Right now, shamans aren't meeting because people get mad when they meet with them in person. You won't meet a lot of shamans who are out wearing masks, but because you're afraid and you want to wear a mask, and shamans can't work with masks, and they, this is kind of a bit of a stretch right now for shamans because they're not going to be able to wear a mask and like sing light language and do all the work they need to do and do that heavy breathing with a mask over their face. So unless you're unafraid and you're not willing to take off your mask, chances are you're not going to be able to work in person with a shaman. You got to get over yourself. All right. Got to get over your fear in order to work with the shaman. But you can do it online. There are a few people I know that do it online. Like, again, my friend Christina Ribel, she's here. Maybe she'll type in her name in the chat because I'm trying to answer questions right now. My other friend, Jen Ward, is a powerful shaman. You can find her at genuinehealing.com with a J, Jen. Those are two powerful shamans. Another elemental shaman that I know is Robina Densa. So I could spend all day typing out names, but when you go to a shaman, you need to have one referred to you, someone that, and kind of think about that and spend some time with the shaman, talk to them, hear their voice, see if they have time to email you back and make some personal contact, get to know them a little bit, maybe talk to them on the phone, something. When you work with a shaman, you need to be willing to follow that shaman's rules. Shamans are bossy. That's because they're working through your ego. So you can't expect them to be like an inner child work facilitator or a Reiki healer. It's very different. Reiki healers will work with compassion, and you're paying them by the hour, so they're going to sit there and let you talk, okay, and you're going to work out that energy. Shamans won't. A good shaman will shush you, will tell you that you're distracting them, will tell you to be completely quiet while they do their work. So that a really powerful shaman will do that, will not let your ego get in the way of their work with you. So are you ready for that? And if you want an in-person, you got to be willing to take off that mask. Yeah. Just as Satan had a contract with the source, can a contract with the source include suicide? Yes, it can. And your ego won't like that because you'll say it's cruel, you'll say it's unjust, you'll say it's unfair, but you came to evolve on a planet that is mastery. It involves going through all the things that are unjust and unfair, or at least some of them. All is a very broad word, but you'll go through a lot of them, or some of them, depending upon your level of choice and mastery. Earth is a grad school, not a boot camp. All right? Earth is hard. You come here because you have been here many times, or you've been places like it. You come here because it's a unique type of mastery that you won't get elsewhere, and it's hard. And yes, suicide's a contract. Yes, cancer's a contract. Yes, car accidents and rape and murder and all the horrible things, genocide, they are all contracts. Because the evolution of the return to source and oneness is so sweet, is so beautiful, is so loving, that on the other side of that is an incredibly loving reward that is so good, and that is why you do it. Yeah. Do I suggest you do it though? No. It's a dramatic way out. Some people do it because they think that they're going to get out of something. They think that they're going to get out of some pain. They think that life is easier on the other side. It's not. And what I see as a medium in most cases is that during suicide, they almost immediately go into, whenever they do reincarnate, immediate's a funny word because spirit doesn't operate in time, but in the human perspective, it would be immediately. In their perspective, they rest a little while in spirit, and then once they're done resting, they go, and whatever they reincarnate towards is the same situation. So in that way, it's like a reset button, but you go back to the same scenario. So in that way, you don't reset and start from ground zero and have a little bit of time off from that lesson. You go straight back into it. So that's why suicide is not advocated ever. Not to mention the pain that you cause other people in that choice is karmically carried over. Karma is not punishment. Karma is just energy that builds and accrues, and you have to work it out at some point. Much like if you don't take care of your car and it breaks down, put gas in the car, breaks down. Karma's a little bit like that. It's just energy you have to deal with. What you put in is what comes back out. It's the same with how you feed yourself. Karma works that way. Yeah. So think about that pain that you're going to cause someone else when you do that, because you're going to have to account for that, right? Somebody asked me another question. That's a depressing subject. I've lost people to that, so it triggers me to talk about it. And so have you. One more question, that's it. And then I'll see you guys on September the 12th. These are just mini classes preparing you for the more powerful class that I'm going to have on September the 12th. If you want to register for that, again, it's PamelaAaralyn.com for the channeling class. It's going to go really deep, just like we did today, if not deeper. See, that's your misinterpretation, Jaylee. He said, if it was a soul contract to experience the situation, why would you collect bad karma from it? And then he said, I thought karma wasn't real. So, no, your concept of karma wasn't real. Your concept of karma from punishment. Karma is energy in motion. So it's like standing at the top of a mountain and pushing the snowball down, and there's a bunch of snow and it's rolling. You push the snowball and then you choose to go stand in front of it, right? And or it's hitting people on the way down, right? And you'll eventually need to go down the mountain. So eventually that snowball hits you, or you'll land up with it, dealing with it at some point, right? So this is how karma works. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not bad karma that you're collecting. You're just collecting energy because you started it. It's like pushing a domino, and say if, here, let me try to show this to you a little bit. If you're standing here, okay, and you push a domino, right? Right? All these dots are dominoes, and it goes around and round 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 and round, and it comes back. It's eventually going to knock you over right here. This isn't good. This isn't bad. It's just what comes out must go back. It's just energy. It's laws of energy. It's everything. It's science. It's universal. And it's earthly. This is what karma means. And when people go, oh my God, it's bad. Karma kicked me in the ass way down here. They start attaching bad or good to karma. Or have good karma, have bad karma. If you knocked over a domino and say it knocked out a bunch of yucky things all the way, by the time it gets here, you're going to be like feeling that domino, not as a pushover, but as a relief. But if you knock over karma and it knocks one in the head, and it keeps going, knocking other people in the head, because that's how karma works. By the time it gets back here, it collects a lot. So it's not about whether it's good or it's bad. That's what our mind attaches to the fact that energy is moving and in motion and affecting so many people. All those people are us the whole time anyway. Universal law of oneness. You see what I'm trying to say about karma? So it's the concept of karma as punishment that Dolores said changed. You cannot get rid of the concept of karma or dharma in universal law. It's not possible. But it's our concepts of it that are shifting. It's not appropriate to teach it as good or bad anymore. That was appropriate for those times. It's not appropriate now. Or at least you thought it was appropriate for those times, right? People who hurt others unknowingly collect a karma. Yeah, absolutely. You collect an energy that you need to work through, whether you're knowing of it or not, which is why it's important to be really aware of the energy that you're putting out into the universe. This is why awakening is important. Yeah. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to go so I can get ready for my next session. and then get ready for the class I'm teaching today on Patreon. I'll see you for the very powerful channeling class. This class was just a mild example of the depth that you will feel in the September the 12th class. Myself and Jen Ward are going to be teaching that, giving you taps to unblock yourself and teaching you techniques to open. And it's a very powerful, deep class. So I don't teach channeling, but maybe about once every several years. So I have no idea if you guys like it, it might become a series, but I'm not going to put this class on my website later for replay. The replay is only going to be available for people who register in advance. You won't see this class on the website later because we like to work best live. We like to just do the class and work with you. It's relevant for these times. And if you guys like it, we might do some series later, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. I haven't taught a channeling class in a long time. And now that you are aware more of my techniques and how I teach channeling, I hope you can make it because we're going to go very deep. These are just a few of the techniques. I've been teaching channeling for a long time. So I've had thousands of them. I don't even think I could get them in one class, but I sure as hell am going to try. Yeah. I'll see you next time. Bye.